From shipwrecks to downed planes all the way to unexploded devices and mass graves, here are the top 10 unsettling World War II archaeology discoveries. Starting off this list, on our number 10 spot we have the SS Wollongbar II. Quite recently, just a few years ago, just off of the east coast of Australia, the wreckage of the ship was discovered. This ship sank in 1943 during the war after being struck by 2 torpedoes sent from a Japanese submarine. The ship sank in just minutes, with only 5 crew members surviving and the rest of the 32 on board sadly losing their lives. The acting minister for veterans at the time, Jeff Lee, said, quote, "This secret has been hidden at the bottom of the deep sea for decades, and this find will give some closure for the descendants and relatives of the 32 people who lost their lives." Another interesting fact about the sinking of this ship is that when it went down, it was carrying boxes of butter and bacon, which then went on to be washed up on the shores. This led to a huge influx of cake baking, which in this time was normally restricted because of the food rationing. In our number 9 spot today, we have a German bomb. This is one discovery that was definitely found accidentally. In August of 2015, construction workers in East London found something that I don't think anyone was expecting when they unearthed an unexploded 500-pound German bomb from World War II that, if detonated, could easily destroy the surrounding homes and buildings. Yeah, not terrifying at all, right? Of course, this site was immediately blocked off and 700 people ended up being evacuated until things could return to normal safely. The British Army's Royal Logistics Corps Explosive Ordnance Disposal Unit took 24 terrifying hours to make this device safe, which thankfully they were able to do without incident. It is thought that there are likely many more of these scary undetonated bombs around because they are the result of bombs that were dropped but failed to go off. Some didn't go off and won't ever because they were made in error, but most of them just had simple technical difficulties that now, if mishandled, could cause the bomb to detonate. It's all terrifying, but thankfully this one didn't go on to do any harm. In our number 8 spot today, we have the USS Lexington. In 2018, researchers were able to locate the wreckage of the USS Lexington, which was a US aircraft carrier that was used in the Second World War. This discovery came at the bottom of the Coral Sea, about 800 kilometers off of the coast of eastern Australia. It is said that the Lexington is one of the capital ships that were lost during the war. It was originally commissioned as a battle cruiser, but in 1925 it was instead launched as an aircraft carrier. From May 4th to May 8th, 1942, this ship and the USS Yorktown faced off against 3 Japanese carriers in the Battle of the Coral Sea. While both the Lexington and the Yorktown put up a great fight, on May 8th the Lexington ended up being damaged when it was hit by multiple torpedoes and bombs. This was already bad, but things got much worse when a secondary explosion led to raging fires, which then led to the crew abandoning ship. On the evening of May 8th, in order to prevent the ship from being captured, it was scuttled or deliberately sunk by the USS Phelps, but not until the surviving 2,770 crew members and officers were rescued. Sadly, this was not every member, however, as it is said that 216 people lost their lives in this battle. In our number 7 spot today, we have the USS Nevada. This ship for many years was deemed unsinkable, but after a long resume of battle, that unfortunately wasn't the case. The USS Nevada, during the 1941 surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, was the only ship to get away in one piece, albeit barely. It took years to repair the ship, but once done, she was returned to battle in 1944 to support the Normandy invasion, and a year after that, it assisted in 2 more invasions and 2 atomic bomb tests. After the war ended, they finally decided that, hey, this gal's seen enough, and they decided to retire her, but not before using her as target practice. It took a lot of ammo and 5 days to do it, but they finally sank the ship with a torpedo being the final strike. After the sinking, the Navy wasn't exactly sure where it would end up. I mean, it was over 15,000 feet below the surface of the ocean, so it really could have gone anywhere. Cut all the way to 2020 during an expedition by Ocean Infinity and Search Inc., and the ship was finally once again located. She ended up just 65 nautical miles southwest of Pearl Harbor. In our number 6 spot today, we have the aircraft wreck. In 2017, divers discovered not only the remains of a wreck of an American B-24, the Tulsa America bomber that was downed just off of the shores of Croatia in 1944, but inside of the wreck they also found the remains of those who lost their lives in the incident. This is one of many aircrafts, mostly bombers like this one, that were downed in the area, and that is because of the fact that there was an important Allied airbase there. The wreck was found resting on the seabed about 40 meters down, and there were bones discovered inside which are said to belong to the pilot and co-pilot of the aircraft. They were able to find them by sifting through the sediment underneath the cabin, and their remains were then placed into bags in order to be lifted out of the water and brought to the ship for further analysis. This is most certainly quite a grim discovery, but it allows those who lost their lives to be returned home, and it allows the relatives some sort of closure with their tragic losses. In our number 5 spot today, we have the backyard discovery. When I read this story, I was definitely concerned, but it also made me laugh so much. Many of us can understand that uncomfortable feeling of having an issue but not wanting to bother anyone else about it until the time is right. Sometimes this is just instinct, sometimes this is just politeness, and sometimes you absolutely need to say screw politeness and bother someone because it's an emergency. Nearing the end of 2017, someone in East Poland was digging in their backyard when they accidentally unearthed an unexploded grenade that dates all the way back to World War II. Because it was around the holidays, he didn't want to disturb anyone who might be enjoying time and food with their families, so instead of calling the police, he put it in a bucket filled with sand and placed it in his shed until after the holidays were over. Once the proper people were informed, the area where he found the explosive was examined, where more dangerous objects were also found. In the end, military personnel came by to take care of and properly and securely destroy these dangerous findings. In our number 4 spot today, we have rocket-propelled mortar shells. While crews were just doing their job, casually clearing up the roadside ditches in northeast Poland, they made a shocking discovery. They uncovered what appeared to be 2 unexploded explosive devices. After experts were called in and further research was done, these 2 items turned out to be German 28-centimeter Nebelwerfer shells. Specialists were then able to come and secure the site and the weapons so that they could be taken away for a scheduled detonation, which occurred the following day. The weapons are rocket-propelled mortar shells that were used with a weapon that would fire them in groups of 6, with their maximum range being around 2,200 meters. In our number 3 spot today, we have a grave. In March of 2018, archaeologists in West Poland made a dark discovery when they found a grave that contained the remains of German soldiers that dates back to the Second World War. To make this discovery even more grim, the soldiers were all bound with a blue cord. According to experts, the remains are from 1945, and while the cord looks extremely eerie, they explained that it was likely just used to transport them to the place of burial. According to archeofeed.com, quote, along with the remains, researchers of the Pomost Association, who initially found archived documents that led to the discovery of the grave, discovered parts of military uniforms, buttons, and German soldier tags. The researchers did not find any marks that would indicate execution of the soldiers. One of the individuals had his legs broken in a few places. According to archaeologists, the soldiers died in battle, and then they would have later been transported to this spot. In our number 2 spot today, we have the crash site. During a 2-month-long excavation that was done by a team of soldiers, sailors, and airmen, as well as civilians, they were able to recover and retrieve some human remains that might belong to the long-lost American air crews of World War II airplanes. The team worked near an island which, during the war, was the site of a Japanese submarine base and a seaplane ramp. This area was the target of a ton of B-24 bombings and raids by the United States in 1944 and 1945. The team sifted through the sand in the area using large baskets in order to search for the remains. Now that they've located the remains, what happens next? Well, the remains will be analyzed to see if they match the profile of any of the missing service members that are associated with that crash site. If so, then their surviving next of kin will be notified. In our number 1 spot today, we have the Chuuk Lagoon. This lagoon was the site of one of the main bases for Japan during the war, but in 1944 the United States launched an attack on it. During this, 60 ships were sunk, around 250 planes were brought down. It is likely that researchers knew about the significance of this area, but we didn't really get a good look at it for some 70 years. A photographer who goes by the name of Super Jolly went down into this less than jolly area to snap photos of everything that can be seen down there. He called this shoot one of the scariest dives he's ever done in his life, and I can completely understand why. The area is filled with human skulls, gas masks, and bullets, and many of the artifacts down here are extremely well preserved, which is great for research, but also just so haunting. This area most definitely serves as a haunting reminder of the realities of a world war. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thank you so much for checking it out. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!